This is Praveen Kamat. It's a great pleasure to be here today with all of you. I've been in the industry for about 25 years now. My initial decade with manufacturing gave me a lot of insights about what one should do and one shouldn't do. But I think the knowledge industry for the last 1.5 decades really exemplified the experience which I had got in manufacturing sector in various positions, both in leadership positions, working through many business leaders locally and globally, made me what I am today. So my last 15 years I've spent with Wipro, and currently I work with a boutique startup organization called HRO. That's about myself. Passionately, I'm associated with Anil for last decade or so, and we are commonly associated in common forums, and that's how this particular conversation happened today. And thank you, Anil, for giving me this opportunity, the Dr. HR, as we call him now, and congratulations for your doctorate too. So today, what we're going to speak is some nuggets of our experience in the last 1 year or so in terms of managing organization at large and HR profession or our own function, to be specific. What could be the nitty-gritties one has to manage, being business value partners or business HR partners? What could be the 2 or 3 things which has gone well for us in our own organizations? And as functional leaders, what could be 1 or 2 learnings which we have learned, and what are that we should continue to do and what we should stop doing in the days to come, given that the pandemic situation not seems to be ending in the near vicinity of the future. It becomes extremely important for all of us to gain insights into what has been our learnings in the last 1 year. COVID-19 has really changed the way we live, and the working models have changed overnight. What we don't know is how the subsequent health and economic crisis will evolve, and what mindset will change or arise for the larger stakeholders in the organization, people at large, and society in general. One thing is certain, I think we will emerge successfully from the current crisis. Organizations will need to nurture their employees much more digitally, connect cognitively with people, understand the relatedness not being there in a person in an organization setup. How do I modify my social and emotional being, thereby building adaptability and significant resilience skills will be the determinant of our success in the future. And this applies both to the organization as well as individuals like us who run large functions like human resources. Let me give you a perspective. Even before COVID-19, the revolution in technology, consumer preferences, and business models were affecting the global workforce. It's just that the virus has accelerated and intensified the rigor, thereby leading or forcing the leader to shift their organizational crisis operations model, which can fundamentally and positively impact their strategies and business models. I think it's pertinent to give you a few statistics here. If you look at LinkedIn's 2020 Workforce Learning Report, which clearly endorses about 99% of the learning and development executives believe if skills are not closed in the next 3 to 5 years, the customer's experience and satisfaction will get impacted, both in terms of product development or in delivery or service function. So companies' ability to innovate will only be the way for somebody to survive and stop them from the erosion of growth. Another interesting statistics LinkedIn brought in that 57% of the talent developers will focus on leadership and management skills. About 42% of them will focus on creative problem-solving skills. And you'll be you'll be surprised. The survey also indicated about 40% will focus on design thinking and on our communication skills to make an impact to our larger audience, which is our employees, our stakeholders, our customers, our suppliers. I think it's a matter of responsibility to respond how an organization deals with the present situation and manages continually. How does one can recover from time to time depending on the needs of the health crisis which is going to change and evolve, and how does one thrive on preparing the organization to shape the new normal. What I've done in the last few months, working closely with business leaders and some of the key organizational impacting talent resources, I went back to them and asked key questions. And some of these questions are very, very organization specific. Some of them are individual specific. Some of them are impacting the teams. Some of them are impacting the larger context of they being in the society, representing the society, family, and the organization. The questions were, what will be the composition and size of the workforce given the current changes in the pandemic situations which business has gone through? What are the skills needed both in your local country as well as internationally if you are a transnational or multinational company on site? Should we evolve a model which is a combination of working from home and partial employee population working in the office environment, thereby calling ourselves as and adopting hybrid workforce environment? When and how we should have our employees back to work, and what would be the timeline? Should we look at a particular geography first, or should we look at a particular work assignment or project, or a particular customer requirement? How do your leaders instill trust in their employees? How will they ensure employees can be confident about their own safety? If more work has to be done, what could be the support the organization need to provide, both in terms of emotional support and making sure employees are more productive or as productive as they were the pre-COVID era? What can it be better to incorporate, or should we think of automation, digital technology, and by leveraging AI as the new normal emerges? We also asked people about what are the kinds of benefits or changes in the benefits an employee should look at, given the size of the problem and the length of the problem in terms of being at home and working for an employer has evolved for a period of now over 1 year now. So given that situation, should we look at our entire total reward framework, our framework around insurance policies, our framework around giving infrastructure support, our frameworks around critical stuff to be in the office? What are the safety governance one has to put in place besides the law of the land, which has been prescribed from state to state, country to country? What are the different tools we should enable to employees to be more effective, to meet the customer demand, as well as to fulfill the need to be productive? And finally, we also asked everybody to be very candid and open in organizational formatted conversations, which could be town hall, focus group discussions, one-on-ones, or coffee with the CEO or the business head. How does one leverage those formats of open communication to be leveraged for taking an advantage of to be an organization which can thrive on the new normal? What I just did, asking these right questions, helped the organization to build the right framework, right model, which can be evolved and changed over a period of time, because we saw the entire stakeholders being consulted in evolving this journey. Let me shift my gear into how does that help or build or make human resource much more meaningful. Human resource as a function, human resource in the context of the changed business environment, human resource as an individual professional. How did it impact him or her in the context of managing the changed work environment or the changing new normal? When we, as a function, when we went back to our business leaders, our organization leaders, our own groups who are CHROs in many organizations. We saw something in common when we expressed our opinion about how we are dealing with the situation. We saw that there is a significant shift which is required to enable remote work, which means evolving critical competencies which can help employees to be digitally competitive, took a prominent place in our learning and development strategies. Many of them are even felt that tracking productivity and employee engagement and well-being is one of their biggest opportunities area to help business realize their desirable results, both in terms of building the top line and bottom line. Significant amount of time went in debates wherein employees, how do we engage employees to bring about fulfillment of their financial, physical, and mental well-being. There were discussions around how do I make people to come on video calls? How do I make sure my Fun Friday activity continue? How do I ensure that I still continue to cut cakes for my employees' birthdays? How do I celebrate a new employee's onboarding? How do I make sure an employee who has spent 25 years in the company celebrate his farewell or her farewell, giving all kinds of insights and the feel that he or she belong, he or she is able to embrace maximum empathy being in this new normal. The other important pointers which we dealt, how do we encourage people to let go of those skill sets which are not current and build critical skill sets. Now, you might call it as digital skill sets to leverage customer value proposition, making sure he or she is able to fulfill the desired result for a customer. How do we support development of these critical roles with critical skills for those people who otherwise did not find themselves both in terms of time and interest levels? A large amount of encouragement, discussions, motivation, examples being told to such employees to make them aware of the need to build those critical skills which are relevant to the customer environment, being in this current situation of new normal. We also got some inputs wherein some of the progressive organizations spent hell of amount of time in communicate openly about the open positions the organizations has. Some of the organizations even encouraged employees to apply for any open positions, those who are especially lost their jobs. They came in multiple social platforms, openly embracing people to apply for those positions which are open, which are not being filled easily, and which are critical to that organizations. I call them as progressive organization, which spent significant amount of support for those employees when they could not find themselves sticking to the role or the job, while that organization managed enough and more cost savings measures. I think I call such organizations as progressive organizations, and I could see people at a CXO level leveraging their social media to embrace those pockets of employee populations who could not survive their jobs. Some of the responsive organizations even started working on design roles, and they restructured the entire org to encourage agility and flexibility. There are organizations where I found the hierarchy was broken. They said, we will keep minimum hierarchy in this organization. Given our current situation, we will encourage people to be more hands-on. And they formalized the processes so that agility and flexibility could be seen in action, thereby employees responding to these changes very, very positively. A lot of organizations invested in cross-skilling, generating functional knowledge and training which are very, very relevant to the customer environment. So to summarize the ecosystem and the changes which we saw a lot of organizations believing in sustenance. Those organizations who made a difference also believed not only in sustenance, they also invested significantly in building satisfaction scores amongst employees. And the so-called progressive organization not only built the sustenance, satisfaction, they also found themselves an identity for themselves and their employees to give a better meaning to the word called work, which can make a significant difference to their own employee base, their own customer base, and their own larger stakeholder base. There are two, three things which one should experience and one should keep in mind while surviving through this hybrid working. Do you have places to reach out when employees, learners, trainees, new employees, people who change the role for enabling a conversation? Do you have enough and more opportunities for them to present their views? Can remote learning be a way of life in your charter for that 8 hours a day? How many hours one has to spend religiously before he or she fills up a timesheet in an IT environment or goes back fulfilling, saying that I've earned a skill today? I think that was one large area of focus the HR environment or the HR functionaries have to deal with. Now, those who have dealt with that very well were able to be very productive in the context of he or she belonging to a business environment or being an HR BP, business partner. The business partner was able to reciprocate the kind of support provided by HR by involving himself or herself in areas of engaging, learning, reciprocating, listening, and able to articulate. The second area of the focus of HR has been around virtual experience. How do you create excitement for someone in a virtual environment? What are the three things which you need to do differently? What should be the periodicity of your connect? How do you ensure that people actively engage while continue to believe your work doesn't suffer? The third area which HR invested significantly in leveraging collaboration techniques using tools and technologies. Most of us who worked in ITES organizations were reasonably well placed in terms of leveraging these collaboration technologies, whether it is video, chat, calls, or meetings. Lot many HR functionaries who worked in organizations or industry setups where collaboration through technologies is a rarity, has to take a lot of time to learn and put them into practice. I found a lot of my colleagues from manufacturing, process industry, aviation, retail, real estate. So those industries who otherwise did not leverage collaboration technologies as the way of their life suddenly realized their need to learn and thereby learning them quickly. The fourth important area which human resource functionaries focused or realized is to leverage and build a business value proposition which will help the business leader to succeed in this complex situation. Let me give an example. If a customer is not willing to let the employee work from home and the customer wants that employee to be in an environment wherein the customer data and security systems is a big question mark. How do HR help the business leaders to enable convincing employees to come to an environment of work in such a pandemic situation? I think a lot of innovative solutions in terms of rostering people working 2 days a week, 3 days a week from office, making sure less of administration work and more of relevant customer work is done in the workplace, ensuring the data privacy and relevant laws and regulations of the countries are maintained and governed without flouting them for the sake of managing a pandemic situation. I think there was considerable time spent by human resource functions in engaging with business leaders to understand the formats of their business much more than what they have understood pre-COVID era. Human resource also spent enough and more time in helping business leaders to manage costs. COVID-19 gave us an opportunity to understand the lens of productivity, the lens of cost to be kept on while continue to believe the lens of emotional connect with employees. I call that as bifocal lens. You continue to have a focal lens to ensure empathy towards employees and a lens focusing on the cost value proposition for your own customers and your business leaders. I think those bifocal methodologies help a lot of progressive organizations to survive, and they will survive in the days to come as we see changes in the landscape, both in terms of response to this pandemic situation, as well as our ability to cope up with the new normal. What is required to be done continually? I think there is a dire need for HR functions to reboot our way of looking at employees, employer, and the larger stakeholders and realign our function with the most pressing business and workforce priorities without sacrificing the employee value proposition or emotional connect with an employee. So rebooting from time to time, people operations priorities and business operation priority is the number one charter. The number two charter would be, how do I reflect on different perspectives and voices of the employees and make a very sensible business and people response, which do not impact the larger objective of survival of the business, as well as survival of employees' ability to be with that organization. So the charter number two is on reflection. The third important charter for HR could be, you should recommit yourself, given the length and breadth of these changes would be changing drastically, and there will always be a highs and lows between cities to states to countries. So you need to recommit yourself to your workforce well-being, physical well-being, psychological well-being, and the financial well-being, both of employees and the business partner or business leader or an employer. That's the third charter of recommit. And the fourth and the last could be to look at if there are alternative ways to adopt a new workforce strategy or workplace strategy, or an alternative way of engagement of employees to maximize the contribution and helping rapidly evolve business strategies aligned to the changed need of the customer, keeping in mind the employee's desire to learn and unlearn. So I just want to summarize. These charters will help us to rebuild, revalue, and recompose ourselves to survive through the changing new normal. I call it as changing new normal. Human resource will continue to play a significant role in this endeavor, and it is testing time for testing our tenacity, our perseverance, and our focus in the next 1 year's time frame. I wish organizations and all my HR functionaries the very best in their endeavor to succeed together in building a progressive organization. Thank you very much, Anil, Dr. HR, to give me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts. Feel free to give your comments, and I would be glad to address any of your concerns in the days to come. Thank you very much.